Anyway, Corey, take it away.
Yes, we are going to the world of dive bars. We are going from the lofty heights of Mahalia Jackson, diving down into buckets of blood in New York City. The dive bars of New York. We're on with Todd Pooser, he's launched a YouTube series called Save the World Dive Bar Tour, and Todd is on with us now. Thanks for coming on, Todd.
Hey, fellas. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So, Todd, I'm so happy to have you on, especially with Malachy, who's sitting right next to me, who has some experience with bars as well. And we'd love to hear what you talk about your experience in some of the dive bars in New York City, and also some of the background for this whole idea. This whole concept is that you have a book that's far from, we're talking almost a highbrow, lowbrow type of thing. This isn't a book that you'll be flipping through in a dive bar necessarily, and you want to get this thing published, and you had this idea that, okay, I want to get a platform for this book. I want to get some publicity. What can I do? And you thought, well, you've bartended, you've hung around bars in your life, right? And then you started, and you thought maybe you'd get some kind of web series on dive bars. Is that right?
That's about it. It really did start with the book. The book is called How the Universe Really Works and What It Means for Us. And in it, I use science to figure out a way for humanity to live happily ever after. And that's something I actually believe is possible. If we sit down and think of it, I think we have the answers.
So it's light reading.
It's light reading, exactly. Actually, you know what? It's not that bad. I mean, I managed to squish everything into about 250 pages. Although, from a first glance, you're like, oh my goodness. Now the good thing is, I think I'm really pleased with the work, and I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. But in order to get a book published, you basically got to prove to a publisher that you don't need them. You basically have to say, listen, I got 1 million Instagram followers, and the point being is, if I had 1 million Instagram followers, I wouldn't need a publisher. And so I sat down to do an hour YouTube lecture, and I said to myself, who is going to listen to Todd Pooser talk about general system theory and externalities taxes for an hour on YouTube? And I said, probably not too many people. And what I really wanted to do was make the content more accessible and make it, package it in a way that people wanted to take a look at it. And as you mentioned, I've been a bartender off and on for years now. Love New York. I consider myself a bit of a dive bar aficionado. And you know what I was doing? I had the TV on, and I was watching, and Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives was on, and I was like, you know what? I can do that. I can go around and say, hey, check this place out. It's really cool. You know what? If you walk into this place, don't order a pomegranate martini because they'll kick you out.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Let's go in.
$3 tall boys at happy hour.
The favorite one is Brandy Alexander. Bartenders love that one because you milk up the wash water, and boy, do the bartenders go mad at that one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you have to tell me how to make it, then you don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked one of the ones you went into a dive bar and you ordered a fancy drink and the bartender cursed you out. I enjoyed that one on your show.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's a good one. Well, and you know what? This comes from my experience. I bartended in a great old New York bar, the Dublin House, which is on 79th between Broadway and Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah.
I was there for years, and that's the type of place. I mean, the guys who came in before me would literally throw you out.
Yeah.
Right. No food, no blenders, no greasy kid stuff. They open at 8 a.m., they close at 4 a.m., and it wasn't just one of these bars where you can get a drink at 8 a.m. What I really liked about it, and what I found to be, I'm really grateful for, is that I caught a little bit of the tail end of the old New York. A lot of my daytime regular customers, they were folks who were born and raised and went to school and got married and raised families and retired, all in the same neighborhood.
And the Upper West Side.
Right.
Upper West Side, yeah.
Right.
Upper West Side was a working.
Ray Kelly, Amsterdam in 83rd, I think it was, that he was born and raised, the former police commissioner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I know my brother Frank rented an apartment right across the street from the old bar, Dublin Bay. Yep.
Yeah, and you know what? So there's a couple things there, and that we're touching upon. I mean, first of all, there is this community, not only within the bar, but amongst these bars. And I certainly want to get my message out on how to save the world, and I do get my diatribes in. But I like the idea of highlighting these bars because a lot of them aren't around anymore. You know,
yeah.
We kind of joke about.
Or they're not going to be around for long.
Or they're not going to be. And the ones that are around, you know, I think we have to take a little bit of time out and show some appreciation because this is history. You know, it's not a fancy coffee shop, and it's not a bank, and it's not a store that sells, you know, $500 pairs of women's shoes, which is a lot of what the Upper West Side is coming about to.
My brother was a bartender out in Mike was he bartended here in New York at various times and so forth. But he was well known. He died recently, and the newspapers out there, it was like they said we have no celebrities in San Francisco, only Mike McCourt, and that was it. But anyway. They quoted all kinds of things that Herb Cain used to go in. He was a big columnist out there, a very famous guy, and he used to go, and whenever he was stuck, he'd go to Mike for a quote and so forth. So one of the stories about Mike was that a couple came in one day and they were, they stand, look at each other. What are you going to have? Well, I'll have a, what are you going to have? Well, I'll have a, and they can't make up their minds. And one said, well, I like something kind of grassy, and then she said, well, it's something, and he said, well, I'd like something woody. And so Mike says, do you want to start a bloody fire, or do you want to drink?
Exactly.
Yeah, so exactly. It is. Yeah.
Exactly. Come on, folks.
The other one too is that people, I was in the saloon business, and a couple of guys came in one day, and they were kind of Ivy League, but they obviously didn't know what the hell they were talking about. So the difference, the language does two countries, England, UK, and America two countries divided by a common language, and draft over here, draft beer, they spell it DRAFT, and over there it's DRAUGH, And so one was trying to impress the other. He said, I'll have a draught beer. He couldn't even pronounce the bloody thing.
Yeah. There. You have those interactions.
Yeah.
One of my favorite. There's a bartender, at the Dublin House when we kind of crossed over when we were working there together. And somebody's like, can you just top me off? There's about a third left in his beer. Can you just top me off? And he looks at him and goes, "Finish your beer." I'm not going to top you off. You want another beer? You don't want another beer.
Yeah.
Somebody dragging the stool across the floor. Pick the stool up. Just no nonsense. That's what I kind of mean when I allude to this. Is like no greasy kid stuff, which is the same thing. Are you going to start a fire?
Yeah.
I want something lemony. Yeah. I don't know how to make lemony.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No. It's really a sociality there, and it goes from more than just sitting down and having a drink. When we were there, when I was working there. Guys could come in and be like, "Listen, I'm kind of stuck until Tuesday, which is payday. Can you run me a tab?
Yeah.
Or would you mind cashing a check?
Yeah.
Or would you mind if I had something sent here in the mail or something like that?" And that's the kind of thing that I think is it's a dying breed.
Payphones.
And I wanted.
How about payphones?
And I want. Yeah, and I wanted to. Those were the things that I wanted to highlight among others.
I think you find the fussy. Now, I remember one day a guy came into one of my joints, and I was behind the bar, and he came in and he sat down. He said, "What time is it?" And I said, "Whatever the time was." Good. He said, "Can I have change for $1?" And so I changed his $1. He said, "Could I have a napkin?" So I gave him a napkin. He says, "Where's the men's room?" And men's room. Came back, and he said, do you have a telephone directory? And we did, and give him that. So there were 5 things that he asked for, and not one penny crossed into my register, So
Right.
I said to him, are you going to buy something? He said, no.
It's like, dude, you got to pay rent.
Yeah, well, he didn't know that. He was sitting on a stool that I had to pay that space, rent on that space, but no.
Exactly.
And he
I'll have a water.
every
That'll
single
do.
thing. Yeah, have a water. Oh, that's right. He asked for a glass of water. Jesus,
Yeah,
I forgot
exactly.
that. Thank you. Yeah. So that was 6 things for free,
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. That's when you turn around and say that water is $4.
Yeah.
I've worked in places too where there are no posted prices.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's called a sliding scale.
Yeah, yes,
So you sometimes work that.
Yeah.
So now, Todd, one of the bars that you did profile was Malachy's on 72nd Street, not to be confused with Malachy McCourt's Malachy's years ago. Now, what was your take on Malachy's on 72nd Street? Which I think Malachy's thought it was. Is it closing or it's still open?
No
now,
way.
right?
As a matter of fact, I think
it's going
they just
strong.
renewed their lease for
Yeah,
It
it's one of those places you see in these neighborhoods that are building up so much. You kind of double take at it. It's like, wow, it's still there. Great.
I was wondering.
Well, Malachy's is great because I know 2 of the bartenders there. One of them used to own a place that was right across the street from the Dublin House. Yeah. It's called Miss Ellie's, and
Miss Ellie's a restaurant.
Yeah.
And so you know how it goes. When you're bartending and there's a neighborhood that has a bunch of bars in there.
Yeah.
You know everybody that works everywhere else.
Sure,
because
it's like
your friend.
Yeah, the jewelry business or and a clothing business, and all the people know each other.
Network.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Why was that? Why did they call that place Malachy's?
Yeah, why dare they? Why dare they call it Malachy's?
I have no idea. I think it's been there. When I was in there and I was talking to them about the show, they were like, I think they said it's been there for 30 years.
Yeah.
So,
but people
maybe it's Malachy's.
Malachi. Well, people are always confused. People always think that I own it, but my Malachy's was at 63rd and 3rd, which we opened the first singles bar in New York in 1958, May 12th. Yeah, and that was and people said 63rd. People said, Jesus, you're not going that far uptown, are you?
Right.
And because it was Antarctica then, but then all of a sudden there was a burst of singles bars and so forth. But I often wonder why they called it Malachy's, because people are saying, I've been into your bar and so forth. And some people have said, they say that, do you know Malachy? And they say, people say, oh, yeah. Well, then you never know when he's going to come in.
Right. You got to see that. Right.
Surprise guest bartending appearance.
Yeah.
Well, those are 2 holdouts: the Dublin House and Malachy's. And I've been on the Upper West Side for years.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of those that you remember the P&G, that's no longer there.
Yeah.
The Allstate was another good one. That's no longer there. That was on 72nd between. It was right on towards West End.
Right.
I think that's where they shot Looking for Mr. Goodbar. There's a bunch of old ones.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, they're still around, and I want to make sure that we hit them. I've got the other 2 that we've done. We just launched one. There's a White Horse Tavern down in the financial district, on just around the corner from Wall Street.
Another White Horse?
There's another White Horse other than the one that's in the Village.
Yeah,
yes.
right. Of course, that's the old famous one where Dylan Thomas and the Clancy's and all of us hung out there.
Oh yeah, right.
That's
the White Horse.
And the Lion's Head was the other one we hung out in.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's
a good
closed
one.
some years ago. And
Now, in terms of what we're talking about are just kind of cool old bars. We're going to talk about dive bars.
Yeah.
There's one that we shot an episode at the Holland Bar, which is on 39th and 9th.
Port Authority.
That's right around the corner from the Port Authority. And boy, howdy.
That's the real deal. Yeah.
That's the real deal right there.
Well, there was a place called Jimmy Glennon's, which was across the street from P.J. Clark's years ago. And Jimmy was a kind of a strange man. He was a highly educated guy that had gone to the seminary, but he spoke Latin and he spoke Italian, and of course he spoke the English language. But it was really one. He had a big picture of the Queen behind the bar, and she had a black eye, and was winking. But he was and he had a bartender. This was one of those strange things. He had another bartender who was from Dublin, and I can't think of his name, but it doesn't matter anyway. But the thing about it is, here's these two guys running this joint, this two-man saloon, and it was, fluorescent lights and fly-blown bulbs and everything dusty and so forth. But it was okay. The prices were fine. But everybody went in. Bing Crosby was regular because he loved Jimmy Glenn, because he was one of the wittiest people ever to walk the earth. But he and his day bartender hated each other. And so when Jimmy would come in to relieve his day man, he'd say to one of the customers, he'd say, ask that son of a bitch behind the bar if we need any change. So he wouldn't talk to him directly. And the other guy was
like a married couple.
Yes, tell that old bastard, yes, we need quarters and we need dimes, we need singles. And that was the way it was. And they never addressed each other.
Man.
And I don't know why Jimmy...
That's a one-act play there. Man.
It was.
Yeah,
it was
kidding.
Such a strange thing. But that was the thing. And also, let me ask you this. Did you ever... people have often joked about this. Do you know the full moon thing in the bars? I always found something strange happen when the full moon, always cuckoo people did come out of nowhere. Do you find that?
You know what? I have to tell you, I'd have to give it some thought. It doesn't really strike me out of left field that, yes, you know what, given the fact, because you know what? You get enough crazy people coming in
under
there
normal circumstances.
Under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean,
every phase of the moon.
One full moon time, a guy came in and he says to me, he looked very, his eyes are darting back and forth, and he said, I have to talk to you. I said, okay, talk to me. No, he said, not in here. He said, let's go outside. So I thought, what is this? So I thought, I better get this guy out of here anyway, because I thought there might be a little bit of trouble with him or something. So we walked down the street, and he said, right here is good. So then we stopped, and he dropped down to his knees, and he drew a chalk circle around my feet. And he said, then he got up and he said, stay there. He said, don't go back in there. It's dangerous. And he left. And here I am standing in this chalk circle on 3rd Avenue, and I think, what the hell is going on here? So I went to a public phone, which they had then, and I rang up my own bar because I said, are there any suspicious packages in there?
Exactly.
I said to the bartender, and he looked around, he said, no, in that case I can come back. But that was
exactly. Is there anything ticking in the suspicious package?
Because you never know.
Let me ask you something. How long did you stand in that circle?
Oh, yeah. Actually, it took me about 4 or 5 minutes before I thought, what am I going to do? What is going... I mean, the guy terrified me because I didn't know whether he'd left a bloody bomb in the place or what,
Yeah, sure. Don't ask me how I know this, but don't go back in there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And he was gone. I never saw him again.
So, Todd, in our waning minutes before we face last call here, just tell listeners how they can learn more about your project. I see toddpooser.com, first of all, is your website, right?
Yeah, absolutely. toddpooser.com. There's a channel on YouTube called the Save the World Dive Bar Tour channel. We've got 3 episodes up there now. I got another handful in the can, and sure would appreciate you checking it out. And and what I also like is suggestions. First of all, I could spend the rest of the year, the rest of the 2 years, just doing shows in New York. But any suggestions here in the 5 boroughs or outside of the 5 boroughs, we want to make this into. Listen, what I always say is there are plenty of cool bars out there, and there's plenty of the world needs saving. So I'm looking for future options. So let me hear from you, and I would just appreciate anybody taking the time to check it out and let me know what they think.
Well, the rents, of course, are so astronomical that the ordinary
Absolutely.
bars can't answer. But do you know that thing of the Coogans up in Washington Heights? There a few months back, when the Columbia Presbyterian Hospital, which owned the building, hoisted the rent up $40,000 a month more.
Yeah, you see that all the time.
Yeah.
What
closed
also
down, yeah.
was the Abbey pub is another one that just
closed.
recently.
Yeah.
That closed.
Right.
And so what happens is that either they say, "Listen, I'm done. I've been here for 50 years. I've made a nice little living here," or they have to change it so radically.
The prices, you can't keep
it's prices, and then they have to start serving food and finger sandwiches and pomegranate martinis.
And it's all over.
You're not. Then it's done. Then it's not the same bar.
Right.
But just having guys, I really appreciate just having the conversation we're having right now is the type of interaction that I think we have to cherish. And telling stories and just having that commonality.
And we had it sober.
And having drinks.
I know, exactly. Imagine how much fun we'd have.
And I will say to people, listen, when you go into a bar, order a drink. Don't sit there looking for napkins and change and time and all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Go for it.
Wait a second. Did you used to work at the Dublin House? You sound like some of the guys I know.
I know. I've often been in there. In there.
All right. Thank you, Todd Pooser. And Save the World Dive Bar Tour on YouTube and toddpooser.com. That's TODDPOOSER, toddpooser.com. And I hope that book gets published. If any agents or publishers out there,
get it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Sign them up.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Are we at the end here?
On.
Thank you, Todd. All the best.
Okay.